Hello and welcome to a new episode of Velocity Kinetics. Apologise for the decrease in volume. It's really late at night here when I'm recording this one, hence my pyjamas. Just having a little bit of insomnia at the moment, but it's as good a time as any to continue on with building F1 team part 2, the engine. As from the introduction video explaining what it is, we're going to break it down into who would I use currently, or who would me and Russ use currently, who would you bring in if you could persuade them, and then what your ideal engine layout would be. So first off, the current crop, who would you use? Well, naturally everyone's going to say Mercedes. Ferrari, as brilliant as it would be to be powered by Ferrari, the problem is they've never been beaten by a customer team. Now it would be fantastic to do it as the first team to do it, and it'd be fantastic if you could do it as part of their stable. So for instance, if you got a Maserati deal out of it, or something similar to what Sauber got with Alfa Romeo, or something else out of the Ferrari stable, but I think that's pretty much the only performance brand they want, unless they want to somehow bring Fiat in, but probably not. So there's that. There's Renault. Been a bit questionable on the reliability front, but then again, if you want to try and appeal to the masses, to the working man, that's one way. And then you've got Honda, which, joking aside about how bad they've been on their re-entry, I don't think they've received much help from McLaren on said re-entry. So there's that, but there's also, that's another way to appeal to the man in the street, because anyone can go buy a Honda, anyone can go buy a Renault. A lot easier than they can buy a Mercedes, on a hell of a lot easier than they can buy a Ferrari. Now, this might surprise a lot of people, but I would probably lean towards Renault and Honda. Probably more Honda. Now, Renault's got very good acceleration. It's quite torquey. It's done the Red Bull pretty well, given how much they focus on their aerodynamics. The engine's done fantastic, although that said, the chassis might have flattened the engine, by the way. There's that, and Toro Rosso putting some impressive performances with the Renault engine. The reason why I would probably go with Honda is it's a bigger global platform to work with. Whilst Renault is a global platform, when was the last time you heard someone in America going having a problem with my Renault? Well, you often hear them talking about their Hondas and this, and then you've obviously got Honda America, Honda Europe, and then Honda Japan back in Sakura. You've then got ways of getting your technology into the road, so through the NSX and the Type R program. Not sure if Mugen still exists, but I think McLaren didn't offer Honda the support they needed. So my team, if I produce the back end of my chassis for them, I know it sounds like a bad euphemism for mooning someone, but let me reword that. I would produce a car and send it to them, and send, make it fit, do what you need to. We will be with you every other week. I appreciate that'd be a lot of money spent on air travel, but I wouldn't have a lot of a technical team going 2 or 3 people all the time, and at least try and make it the same group of people going constantly. Likewise, I try and have some Honda guys constantly at the factory as well, to try and get the best out of it. The advantage of this is if, say, Toro Rosso didn't like Honda, my team would then have the power to say, well, we're the works team, and we could then start saying who can and can't have Honda power. I would probably introduce something very similar to what Ron Dennis did when they brought Honda back, and have the power of veto, which they utilised to stop other teams getting said Honda power, aside from Sauber. I probably would be a little more open to a back end of the field team, because data is data, but that's getting a little more involved than what building an F1 team was meant to be. But I would probably lean towards Honda. Not really, I need to make a final decision, don't I? It'd be nice to go with Renault. The advantage of going with Renault, they're a lot closer than Honda are over in Japan. Renault have got good F1 experience, they're world champions twice, whereas Honda have been they've been Constructors Champion, quite part of the Constructors Champion a few times as an engine supplier. But that said, Honda's last foray into F1 didn't yield that many brilliant results. So I'm going to stick my head out and say Honda power. It's, a little bit of it is just to be a bit different, because really, like everyone else, I would like to have Mercedes power, but I think Honda's got the better global platform. Now, as to who I would bring in, if I didn't want any of the current four, who would I bring in? Well, there's a few good choices I could bring in, of people I would love to bring in. Now, I would love to bring Cosworth in, because there's just something about having the Cosworth name attached to your team, even though Cosworth didn't do too well in their last F1 venture. Still, Williams, Cosworth, Lotus, Cosworth. There's something to it. Likewise, I'd be interested in bringing Ford in, because if you're going to talk about Honda actually being my engine supplier, hypothetical engine supplier, and having a great global platform, Ford have got the best global platform. And you've got ways of getting it into the GT program and the ST program, the RS program. Could even help them in other avenues of sport, of motorsport as well. Ford would be a brilliant one to bring in. Another American one would be something out of the GM stable. Probably have to be Corvette or Cadillac. Probably more likely Cadillac. And something European. Something else European, should I say? I'd quite like to get Volvo involved. Now, I'm going to run through those four as quickly as I can, because I want to try and keep this relatively short. But Cosworth, they're English based. I'm on about to base my team in England. It'd be super easy and convenient to deal with any engineering problems, and can constantly be in and out of each other's factories. I should stress, when I chose Honda and I'd build a chassis for them to take away and do what they can with, rather than having the engine and the car meeting for the first time at the factory, make it so they've done what they can to make it work and checked all the cooling and things. I would do the same for them. So if it was Cosworth, Ford, etc., etc. And then, like I said, there's the pedigree of having Cosworth power, but then all the extra other avenues that Cosworth have, like gearboxes, electronics, and things, that there'd be a solid team to go with, a solid engine manufacturer to go with. Ford would be quite interesting, because if you kept the current 1.6 V6 turbo layout, it's very similar to their EcoBoost. So actually, you don't need to necessarily be a Ford Works team. You could be Ford EcoBoost, or say, I'm not sure what I would call my team, just for a placeholder, say I called it White EcoBoost. Then you've got Ford's patented EcoBoost name. You know EcoBoost is Ford. Ford's there, or you can have it White Ford, whatever you wanted to call it. It's a great global platform. It'd be very good to get F1 awareness in America. It would be a great way of just getting to power. And then, if you think about it, all the other teams that won the past, Lotus Ford, Tyrrell Ford, Matra Ford, there's something about having Ford in F1. I mean, something to say, the Ford Cosworth DFV8 was one of the most successful F1 engines ever. I think Ford Cosworth had won second. I think they're still second in the most number of races won as an engine, aside from Ferrari, which naturally they're going to still remain on top for years unless Ferrari drop the ball dramatically in the next couple of years and Mercedes just wipe the floor with everyone. But there's something appealing about Ford. You can't talk about Ford and get an American audience in without looking at General Motors, because General Motors is the other big powerhouse. Now, the General Motors stable, there's a lot of things you could have, but then that said, General Motors have slimmed down their operations quite a lot. So, for instance, you could have tried to have the Vauxhall name, you could have had the Opel name. Years ago, you could have had the Pontiac name, you could have had the Olds name, the Oldsmobile. But I probably wouldn't have gone for any of those. Now, you could say, well, why didn't you choose Buick? Which I don't think Buick are GM, but why didn't you choose Buick or Dodge or someone like that? There's a good reason, because GM appeals to the working man. They've got GMC, which is their own General Motors, and you've got Chevy, you've got Cadillac, you've got Corvette, just to name a few within the stable. Chevrolet, after their European venture, is not really something that I would want to entertain as an engine supplier. Corvette seems a pretty good choice. The thing is, a lot of Americans, I don't fully understand why, But you notice on things like Top Gear USA, when they're talking about it's got a Chevrolet LS7 motor, it's got a detuned LT1 motor. So in that sense, Chevy might be okay from that perspective, but Chevy make big V8s and small block V8s. It's not. Turbo V6s aren't really their game. But given that Saab's dead, and the reason why it died is because General Motors didn't want Saab as the luxury brand anymore. They wanted to promote Cadillac. I've not seen that many Cadillacs in England. There are fewer Cadillac dealerships than there are Rolls-Royce dealerships, and even then, if you wanted the Cadillac, you had to order it through a Chevy dealership. How you would order a Cadillac in the UK now is a mystery, probably an importer and then a right-hand drive conversion. The reason why I would choose Cadillac if I went with something from the General Motors stable is you've had BMW in F1 before, luxury premium brand. You've got Mercedes in F1, luxury premium brand. They make good high-powered sports cars and saloons and 4x4s. You've got constant talk of Audi coming in, and what did they make? Premium saloons, high-powered performance vehicles. And then you've got talk of Porsche coming in. Porsche have been in F1 before as an engine supplier, but now they make the Panamera, the Macan, the Cayenne, the 911, 924. No, not 924. What's it called? The Cayman and the 718, formerly the Boxster. So you've got quite a big stable of vehicles to choose from, and then you've also had like Toyota in F1 before Honda on-off in F1. Cadillac would be a good place to go because if you look at IMSA, which is a prototype racing in America, Cadillac have been wiping the floor with everyone now. I appreciate a lot of Cadillac's vehicles are based on big V8s and retuned and detuned Corvette engines and big blocks and small blocks and so on and so forth. But it'd be a great way to get the brand out there. It adds a bit of class to your engine. Cadillac, even now, there's still a little bit of magic left to the name Cadillac. I'd have to flip a coin to choose between going with Cadillac or going with Ford if I had to choose an American supplier, unless I could somehow convince Ford to come in with Cosworth. But there's pros and cons both ways. Then the other supplier I'd be interested in trying to get in would be Volvo. Why Volvo? Well, Volvo aren't interested, are they? They won't make anything bigger than a 4-cylinder, nothing bigger than a 2-litre. But if you look at what the S60 Polestar did in World Touring Cars this year, it pulled an absolute blinder. They won the championship. Granted, that was Cyan Polestar Racing who did that. You got Volvo launching their electric and hybrid division of Polestar itself. So it may not necessarily be white Volvo, it might be white Polestar, white Cyan Racing Polestar, white Cyan Volvo, something like that. And then Volvo, big premium brand, it would give them more exposure. Volvo always championing safety, so imagine them as part of the road safety campaigns and the safety campaigns for drivers. It's a good choice. I mean, if you wanted to get something else in, say, from that end of Europe, you can't have Saab. The only other thing left is Koenigsegg. But Koenigsegg is a completely different kettle of fish. Volvo is semi-achievable for the working man. It's also a very nice premium brand. It swings and roundabouts, and Volvo being very passionate about their technology and fuel efficiency and things. So it might be possible. I would love to have that. Out of those 4, Cosworth, blue ink on my hand. Out of Cosworth, Ford, Cadillac, and Volvo, I would rank them first choice Volvo, then Cadillac, Cosworth, and Ford. But those final 3, so Cadillac, Ford, and Cosworth, that order would probably change daily, just because I've said it in that order now. If I did this tomorrow, it would probably be a completely different order. But Volvo probably would be the easier ones to work with, and if I wanted to make my car much more fuel efficient, my engine much more fuel efficient, who better than a country that buys in other countries' waste to recycle it. And then the final point, the engines, was the ideal engine layout. I quite like the 1.6 V6s. I admit, yes, at the time I wasn't sold on them, much like everyone else. people say go back to the V8. They're not relevant anymore, in my opinion. If they were relevant, they wouldn't have changed them. They might have made them, say, gone down to 2.2s or something like that. They'd have made a small change to them, but that's if they've kept the V8 formula. The problem is with those with those 2.4 V8s, they were not very torquey for the amount of power they had. Whereas with the 1.6s, we saw like the likes of Valtteri in the first race of the 2014 season, sliding around, trying to catch up and get, I think he finished 5th or 6th in that race, if I remember rightly. Possibly could have finished on the podium if he hadn't clunked the right rear against the wall. So I would stick with turbo, maybe 1.6. I'd be curious to know what a 1.8 V8 would sound like twin turbo. I would keep the electric energy recovery. I would just make so the teams could use as much of it as they wanted. I would make it though so you could only, so say for instance, just to make it a nice round number, your car has to produce 1,000 horsepower in total. I would probably do it so you, out of that 1,000 horsepower, a minimum of 200 has to be electric, and a maximum of 800 has to be combustion. So that then leaves it open for people, say, going 500 and 500. It might create a technical headache on minimum weights and things, but I would certainly impose that rule. I would be curious to know what a 1.8, 1.9 twin turbo V8 would sound like. What I would probably do on the V6's front is look at lowering them to 1.4 or 1.3 to then make it more focus on engine combustion. Single turbo though. The noise, tough. You're going to have to get used to it. They're quieter. It's a turbo. Turbos are quiet. What else do you want from me? So that's the end of this particular one. Because I'm suffering from insomnia at the moment, there's probably going to be another one in my pyjamas, which I can only apologise about, but if I could sleep, we wouldn't be doing this now, would we? Keep an eye. I think Russ is getting one of his up at some point soon if he's had a chance to get one of these recorded. Remember to join in on the hashtag Build an F1 team. Velocity Kinetics has been made in association with Road Race Parts. Top quality, best prices, no compromise. Head to roadraceparts.com to get parts for your racing vehicles now.